Emily Chen stood frozen on the cracked sidewalk, the golden hues of the setting sun casting long shadows across her path. The air was thick with the anticipation of tomorrow, the college entrance exam, the gateway to her future. But for Emily, this moment wasn't just about the test. It was about a second chance, a gift she couldn't explain. Her heart pounded, not from the weight of equations or ancient poems, but from the memories of a life already lived, where she had lost everything. In that previous existence, Emily had been the pride of her small town, a top student with dreams of a prestigious university. Though not wealthy, her parents had poured their love into her, their faces glowing with pride at every report card. Her godparents, the Jiaos, treated her like their own, and their son Ethan was a constant presence in her life. Ethan Jiao, her childhood friend, her confidant, the boy who'd once shared her dreams of escaping their sleepy town. But Ethan was gone by the time the exam arrived, replaced by a stranger consumed by obsession. It had started with Sophia Lynn, Ethan's goddess. Sophia was a transfer student, her delicate features and trembling voice masking a cunning Emily hadn't seen until it was too late. Sophia had set her sights on the exam, but not through study. She wanted to cheat, and she wanted Ethan to help her. When Ethan approached Emily, his eyes pleading for her to join their plan, she refused. The risk was too significant, not just for her future, but for Ethan's. She couldn't bear to see him throw away his potential for a girl who seemed to care only for herself. Her refusal sparked a fire. Ethan's face twisted with rage, his words cut deeper than she'd thought possible. "You're selfish, Emily. You think you're better than us." That night, their argument echoed through the empty streets, and Emily, desperate to save him, told his parents. She thought she was protecting him. Instead, she lit the fuse of her destruction. Sophia denied the answers she'd counted on and flunked the exam. In a dramatic act that shook the town, she climbed to the school rooftop and leapt, her fall a silent accusation. She survived, but the damage was done. Ethan, consumed by grief and guilt, turned on Emily. In his eyes, she was no longer a friend but a murderer, the one who'd pushed Sophia to the edge. He vowed revenge, and he was relentless. Ethan's campaign was meticulous. He spreads lies, painting Emily as vicious and immoral. He planted money in her bag, framing her as the thief who'd stolen the class fund. At school, whispers followed her like shadows. Classmates who once admired her turned away, their eyes cold. Teachers, once her champions, looked at her with doubt. The worst blow came from her parents. Ethan, ever the performer, held her in a false embrace before them, his voice dripping with fake remorse. "Emily knows she was wrong. Please forgive her." Her protests were smothered, her truth buried under his lies. Her parents, disappointed, saw her as a rebellious child, and her grades were no longer enough to redeem her. By the time Emily reached college, she was a ghost of herself, shunned and broken. Ethan's final act was a cruel twist. He claimed she'd been jealous of Sophia, in love with him, and her refusal to help was spite. The lie stuck, and Emily's world collapsed. Friends vanished, opportunities faded, and the girl who'd once dreamed of the stars was left with nothing but regret. Now, standing on this familiar sidewalk, Emily felt the weight of that past life like a stone in her chest. But something had changed. A force, fate, karma, or a cosmic plea for justice, had pulled her back. She had awoken this morning, not in the shattered remnants of her college years, but here, on the eve of the exam, her body young, her mind sharp with memories of what was to come. The how and why eluded her. Was it a one-time gift? A test? She didn't know. But she knew one thing. She would not let Ethan Jiao destroy her this time. Her fingers tightened around her backpack straps, the faint clink of her house keys grounding her. The street was quiet, the same street where, in her past life, Ethan would soon corner her with his desperate plea. She could see it now, his hopeful smile, his words cloaked in friendship, asking her to risk her future for Sophia's. Last time, she'd argued, pleaded, tried to save him. This time, she would walk away. Emily's gaze hardened as she looked toward the horizon, where the school loomed like a battlefield. Ethan and Sophia were plotting out, unaware their opponent was no longer the naive girl they'd known. She thought of her parents, warm smiles and unwavering belief in her. She thought of her godparents, the Jiaos, who'd suffer for Ethan's choices. And she thought of herself, the Emily who'd been crushed but now stood reborn, armed with knowledge and resolve. This was her chance to rewrite her story, to protect her dreams, her family, her future. Ethan and Sophia would face consequences, but Emily would not be their pawn. As the sun dipped below the rooftops, casting the world in a fiery glow, she took a deep breath and stepped forward. The exam was tomorrow, but the real battle had already begun. Emily Chen's sneakers scuffed against the uneven pavement as she walked home, the fading sunlight painting the street in shades of amber and gray. The college entrance exam loomed like a storm on the horizon, but her mind was elsewhere, replaying the memories of a life she'd already lived. She knew what was coming. In her past life, this very evening, Ethan Jiao would intercept her on this street, his voice soft but insistent, begging her to join a plan that would shatter her future. She could still see his face, hopeful, manipulative, blind to the consequences. This time she wouldn't let him pull her into the abyss. The air grew cooler as she neared the corner where their paths always crossed. Her pulse quickened, not from fear but from resolve. Ethan had been her friend since childhood, the boy who'd raced her to the river, shared her dreams of city lights, and laughed at her terrible attempts at calligraphy. But Ethan had vanished, consumed by his obsession with Sophia Lynn. His betrayal had cut deeper than any knife in her past life, turning her into a pariah. Now, reborn with the clarity of hindsight, Emily saw him for what he was, a puppet to Sophia's ambitions, a threat to her hard-earned future. She adjusted her backpack, the weight of her textbooks grounding her. Her parents' modest home was just blocks away, a haven of warmth and trust she'd nearly lost in her previous life. Ethan's parents, her godparents, lived next door, their bond with her family woven through years of shared meals and celebrations. But Ethan's choices had strained that connection, and Emily knew she had to protect it just as she protected herself. The street was quiet, save for the distant hum of cicadas, but she sensed him before she saw him, a shadow moving swiftly from the alley. "Emily!" Ethan's voice cut through the dusk, familiar yet jarring. He jogged toward her, his lanky frame outlined against the fading light. His smile was wide, but his eyes held a glint of urgency, setting her nerves on edge. "Wait up, I need to talk to you." Emily's stomach twisted, memories flooding back. This moment had been the spark of her downfall in her past life. Ethan had stood here, his words cloaked in friendship, asking her to help Sophia cheat on the exam. "It's just a few answers, Em. You're the best at this. Sophia needs us." She'd refused, her voice trembling with principle, and their argument had erupted, raw and bitter. She'd warned his parents, hoping to save him from ruin, but it only fueled his hatred. He'd painted her as heartless, a traitor, and spent years dismantling her life. Not this time. Emily slowed her pace, forcing a neutral expression. "Hey, Ethan, what's up?" Her tone was casual, but her mind raced, calculating her escape. She couldn't let him draw her in, couldn't risk even a hint of involvement. Ethan caught up, slightly out of breath, his dark hair falling into his eyes. "I've been trying to catch you all day. You're always so busy." He laughed, but it was forced, a mask for his true intent. "Listen, please come with me. There's someone I want you to meet." Emily's heart skipped. She knew who it was, Sophia Lynn, waiting at their usual spot, her delicate features hiding a ruthless ambition. In her past life, Emily had gone, curious and naive, only to face Sophia's tearful plea and Ethan's pressure. The memory stung. Sophia's trembling voice, claiming her parents would marry her off if she failed, and Ethan's blind devotion as he begged Emily to help. She'd said no, but the fallout had been catastrophic. She stopped walking, turning to face him. "Meet someone? Now?" She tilted her head, feigning confusion. "Ethan, it's the night before the exam. I've got to review." His smile faltered, a flicker of frustration crossing his face. "Come on, Em, it won't take long. It's important. You'll understand when you see her." His voice softened, the same coaxing tone he'd used before, but Emily saw through it now. He wasn't asking for a favor. He was setting a trap. Her mind raced for an out. She couldn't confront him directly, not yet. A refusal might spark suspicion, and she needed to stay clear of his schemes without raising his guard. Her hand brushed against her backpack, and an idea sparked. "Oh, shoot," she said, her voice tinged with exaggerated panic. "I just remembered I left my house keys in the classroom. I've got to go back and get them." Ethan's brow furrowed, his urgency shifting to doubt. "Your keys? I saw you put them in your bag earlier. Check again. His tone was insistent, almost accusatory, and for a moment Emily glimpsed the Ethan who'd later betray her, the one who'd twist the truth to suit his needs. She made a show of rummaging through her bag, shaking her head. Nope, not here. I must have left them on my desk. You go ahead, Ethan. I'll catch up another time. She smiled sheepishly, stepping back to lock her bike against a nearby pole. Her movements were deliberate, buying time as she gauged his reaction. Ethan hesitated, glancing toward the direction of Sophia's meeting spot. His jaw tightened, torn between pressing her and keeping his promise to Sophia. Are you sure? It's essential, Em. His voice held a pleading edge, but Emily caught the undercurrent of manipulation, the same tactic he'd used to guilt her in her past life. I'm sure, she said firmly, her gaze steady. I can't get into my house without those keys. You don't want me sleeping on the street, do you? She injected a teasing note, diffusing the tension while reinforcing her excuse. Ethan's shoulders slumped, defeat creeping into his expression. Fine, he muttered, waving a hand. But we're talking tomorrow, okay? Don't dodge me. He turned and jogged off, his figure swallowed by the deepening twilight, chasing a girl who'd lead him to ruin. Emily exhaled, her breath shaky but triumphant. She'd dodged the first bullet, but the war was far from over. As she unlocked her bike, keys safely in her pocket, she felt the weight of her past life's lessons. Ethan's betrayal taught her to trust her instincts and see the cracks in his loyalty. Sophia's shadow loomed larger, a threat she couldn't underestimate. But Emily was no longer the girl who'd pleaded for fairness. She was a warrior, reborn, and this was only the beginning. She pedaled home, the cool night air sharp against her skin. Her parents' house came into view, its warm lights a beacon of safety. She'd face the exam tomorrow, but tonight she'd plan her next move. Ethan might try again, but Emily would be ready. The shadow of betrayal lingered, but she'd step out of its reach, one careful move at a time. Emily Chen pedaled furiously through the quiet streets, the cool night air stinging her cheeks as her parents' house faded behind her. The encounter with Ethan Jiao still buzzed in her mind, his pleading voice a reminder of the trap she'd narrowly escaped. That conversation had been the spark of her ruin in her past life, igniting Ethan's resentment and Sophia Lynn's schemes. Now, reborn with the clarity of hindsight, Emily knew one truth. Staying close to Ethan was a risk she couldn't afford. As the familiar silhouette of her neighborhood loomed, she resolved to build a wall between them, starting tonight. Her home came into view, its modest facade glowing with the warm safety light. Inside, her parents waited, her mother, May, with her fiery spirit and quick tongue, and her father, Liang, calm but unyielding in his love. Ethan's lies had turned them against her in her previous life, their disappointment a wound that never healed. The memory stung. Their faces, once proud, clouded with shame as Ethan framed her as a thief. This time, Emily vowed to preserve their trust, to keep them as her anchor against the storm she knew was coming. She locked her bike and slipped inside, the scent of jasmine tea and stir-fried vegetables wrapping around her like a hug. May was at the stove, her apron dusted with flour, while Liang sat at the table, his glasses perched low as he read the evening paper. Emily, you're late, May called, her voice sharp but warm. Dinner's almost ready. Go wash up. Emily forced a smile, her heart still racing from Ethan's ambush. Sorry, Ma, I got held up at school. She dropped her backpack by the door, her mind calculating her next move. Ethan lived next door, and his parents, her godparents, were close enough to knock at any moment. In her past life, he'd cornered her at home, his charm disarming her parents as he pushed his cheating plan. She couldn't let that happen again. The dorms at school were her best defense, a physical barrier to keep him at bay. Over dinner, Emily picked at her rice, her thoughts spinning. May noticed, her dark eyes narrowing. What's wrong, girl? You look like you've seen a ghost. Liang lowered his paper, his steady gaze locking onto her. Emily took a deep breath, knowing she had to tread carefully. Her parents were her allies, but she couldn't reveal the truth of her rebirth, or Ethan's betrayal. I've been thinking, she began, her voice measured. The exam's in 2 days, and I feel distracted at home. I want to move into the school dorms until it's over. I'd focus better there, surrounded by other students. She paused, gauging their reactions. It's just for a few days. I want to give this everything I've got. May's chopsticks froze midair, her brow furrowing. Distracted? You're top of your class, Emily. What's got you so rattled? Her tone was skeptical, but there was worry in her eyes, the kind that made Emily's chest ache with gratitude. In her past life, May's fire had turned to anger when Ethan's lies took hold. Now, that fire was her shield. Liang set his paper down, his calm demeanor contrasting May's intensity. You've always studied fine here. Why the sudden change? His question was gentle but probing, and Emily knew he'd see through a flimsy excuse. She leaned on a half-truth, one rooted in her real fears. It's the pressure, she said, her voice softening. Everyone's counting on me, teachers, classmates, you. I can block out the noise at school and stay in the zone. I don't want to let anyone down. Her eyes met theirs, and she allowed a flicker of vulnerability to show, a calculated move to win their support. May snorted, but her expression softened. Pressure? You're tougher than that, Emily Chen. But if it'll help you focus, fine. Just don't think you're escaping my cooking for long. She pointed a spatula at her, a playful threat that eased the tension. Liang nodded, his approval quiet but firm. If it's what you need, we'll make it work. But you call us every night, understand? We're not rich, but we've got enough to support you. His words, simple and steady, were a lifeline. In her past life, Ethan's manipulation had made her feel like a failure in their eyes. Now, their trust was her strength. Emily's throat tightened, gratitude mingling with resolve. Thanks, Ma Baba, I won't let you down. She meant it, not just for the exam, but for the battle ahead. Ethan might try to breach her defenses, but the dorms would give her space to plan, to stay one step ahead. After dinner, she helped clear the table, her mind mapping out the days to come. The dorms were a sanctuary, but Ethan was persistent. He'd ring the doorbell, charm her parents, or catch her at school. She needed to be invisible, untouchable. As she washed dishes beside May, the clink of plates a steady rhythm, she recalled her past life's mistakes. She'd tried to save Ethan, warning his parents about his plan, only to ignite his hatred. This time, she'd let him fall, let Sophia's schemes unravel without her interference. Later, in her room, Emily packed a small bag for the dorms, textbooks, clothes, her lucky pen. She paused at a photo on her desk, her and Ethan, 10 years old, grinning by the river, their godparents laughing in the background. The memory was bittersweet. That Ethan was gone, replaced by a boy who'd trade their friendship for Sophia's approval. She tucked the photo face down, a silent farewell to the past. As she lay in bed, the moonlight spilling through her window, Emily's resolve hardened. Moving to the dorms was more than a retreat, it was a declaration of war. Ethan and Sophia thought they could bend her to their will, but they didn't know the Emily who'd risen from the ashes of betrayal. She'd ride to school early tomorrow, slip into the dorms, and begin her defense. The exam was her battlefield, but protecting her future was her true fight. With her parents' love behind her, she closed her eyes, ready for the dawn. Emily Chen leaned against the dormitory window, the early morning light filtering through the glass, casting soft patterns on the worn wooden floor. The school campus buzzed with the nervous energy of students cramming for the college entrance exam, now just days away. Emily's textbooks lay open on her desk, but her gaze was fixed outside, where Sophia Lynn stood near the courtyard fountain, her delicate frame bathed in sunlight. To the untrained eye, Sophia was just another student, her head bowed over a notebook, her expression one of quiet focus. But Emily, armed with the scars of her past life, saw something else. A predator cloaked in fragility, a girl whose ambitions could ruin lives. Settling into the dorms had been seamless. Emily's parents, May and Liang, had helped her move in the previous evening, May fussing over her bedding while Liang quietly slipped her extra cash for snacks. Their support grounded her, a stark contrast to the betrayal she'd faced in her previous life, when Ethan Jiao's lies had turned them against her. The dorms were her fortress now, a barrier against Ethan's attempts to draw her into his and Sophia's cheating scheme. She'd arrived at school an hour early, slipping past the morning crowd to avoid him, her bike chained securely by the gate. But Sophia was another matter, a puzzle Emily needed to solve to stay ahead. From her window, Emily watched Sophia's subtle movements. The way she tilted her head when a classmate approached, her smile warm yet calculated. The way her eyes flicked toward the science building, where Ethan often lingered between classes. In her past life, Sophia had played the victim, her trembling voice weaving a tale of oppressive parents who'd marry her off to an older man if she failed the exam. Ethan had swallowed it whole, his devotion blinding him to her manipulation. Emily, too, had pitied her, offering advice to work hard and break free. But Sophia's tears had been a performance, her story a tool to bend others to her will. Now, reborn with clarity, Emily saw the cracks in Sophia's facade. The sob story didn't add up. Sophia's polished appearance, her neatly pressed uniform, the silver hairpin glinting in her hair, suggested a family with means, not desperation. Her confidence in class, her knack for charming teachers, spoke of someone who thrived on control, not fear. Emily's stomach churned as she recalled Sophia's role in her downfall. After failing the exam, Sophia had leapt from the school rooftop, a dramatic act that survived only in whispers. She'd blamed Emily, claiming jealousy over Ethan, fueling his vendetta. That lie cost Emily everything, her reputation, friends, and family's trust. Emily turned from the window, her fingers tracing the edge of her desk. Sophia wasn't just after a passing grade, she wanted power, a way to secure her future without effort. Ethan was her pawn, his loyalty a tool to execute her plans. But why target Emily? In her past life, Emily's refusal to help had derailed Sophia's scheme, but there was more to it. Sophia's accusations, claiming Emily loved Ethan, that her refusal was spite, felt personal, as if Emily's integrity threatened her. Was it envy? Control? Emily couldn't be sure, but she knew one thing. Sophia was dangerous, and underestimating her would be a mistake. She sat at her desk, pulling her history notes closer, but her mind stayed on Sophia. In her past life, she'd been naive, trying to reason with her, to offer solutions. "Work hard, Sophia. You can break free," she'd said, believing in fairness. Sophia's response had been a cold stare, her tears drying as Ethan exploded at Emily, calling her heartless. That moment had taught her a brutal lesson. Some people didn't want saving, they wanted pawns. This time, Emily wouldn't engage. She'd watch, learn, and stay out of Sophia's web. A knock at the door jolted her. "Emily, you up?" It was her doormate, Lily, a cheerful girl with a knack for math. Morning study session in the common room. "You coming?" Emily hesitated, glancing at her notes. Studying was her cover, her shield against suspicion, but it also kept her visible, safe among peers. "Yeah, give me a sec." She grabbed her books, her lucky pen tucked in her pocket. As she followed Lily down the hall, she thought of her parents. May's fiery protectiveness and Liang's quiet strength were her reason to fight, to keep Ethan and Sophia at bay. In her past life, Ethan's lies had made her a stranger in her own home. Now, their love was her armor. In the common room, students huddled over textbooks, their whispers a low hum. Emily settled at a table, her eyes scanning the room. No sign of Ethan or Sophia, but she felt their presence like a shadow. She opened her notes, her pen moving mechanically, but her mind replayed Sophia's courtyard pose. What was her end game? A top university, a life of ease, or something darker, control over Ethan, over anyone who crossed her? Emily's grip tightened on her pen. She'd need to be sharper, more vigilant, to outmaneuver a girl who thrived on deception. As the morning wore on, Emily's focus sharpened. She answered Lily's questions, her voice steady, but her thoughts were on the exam, the battlefield where Sophia's plan would unfold. She'd stopped Ethan's scheme by warning his parents in her past life, but it had backfired, painting her as the villain. This time, she'd let them dig their own graves, staying clear of their fallout. Sophia's motives might be hidden, but Emily's were clear: protect her future, her family, her dreams. She glanced out the window, where the fountain now stood empty. Sophia was out there, plotting, but Emily was ready. The game had begun, and she wouldn't lose. Emily Chen sat cross-legged on her dorm bed, the faint glow of a desk lamp illuminating her open textbooks. The clock on the wall ticked relentlessly, each second a reminder that the college entrance exam was now just 2 days away. Her notes were a mosaic of highlighted formulas and scribbled poems, her lucky pen worn from hours of use. The dorm was quiet, her roommates asleep, but Emily's mind was a storm of focus and strategy. This exam had been her triumph in her past life, only to be overshadowed by Ethan Jiao's betrayal. Now, reborn, she was determined to reclaim her victory and keep Ethan and Sophia Lynn at arm's length. The move to the dorms had been a success. Emily's parents, May and Liang, had settled her in with their usual mix of fussing and faith, May packing extra snacks and Liang slipping her a reassuring nod. Their trust was her anchor, a shield against the memories of her previous life, when Ethan's lies had turned them against her. Here, surrounded by studious peers, Emily could focus without fear of Ethan knocking at her door. But he was still out there, his shadow looming as she navigated the school's crowded halls, her senses sharp for any sign of him. By day, Emily was a whirlwind of activity, her diligence both a cover and a necessity. She joined morning study sessions, her answers crisp and confident, earning nods from teachers and groans from classmates. "Emily, give it a break," her dormmate Lily teased, tossing a pencil at her. "You're making us look bad." Emily smiled, deflecting with a shrug, but her intensity wasn't just for grades. It was a shield, a way to stay visible yet untouchable, and her top student status was a reason to dodge Ethan without suspicion. She'd seen him twice since their street encounter, his eyes searching for her in the cafeteria, but she'd slipped away, using crowds or teacher questions as her escape. Her vigilance paid off. Ethan's attempts to corner her, at the bike racks near the library, were thwarted by her quick moves. She'd duck into classrooms, linger at the teacher's podium, or bury her nose in a book, her heart pounding but her face calm. In her past life, she'd confronted him, arguing against his cheating plan, only to spark his hatred. This time she chose silence, letting him stew in his plans with Sophia. But silence didn't mean ignorance. Emily knew they were plotting, and she needed to know how. Her chance came unexpectedly. All students were housed in a pre-booked hotel near the testing center the night before the exam to ensure punctuality. Emily checked in, her small bag slung over her shoulder, the hotel's sterile halls buzzing nervously. As she headed to her room, she spotted Ethan at the front desk, collecting a ceremonial academic success robe from his parents, her godparents. Their eyes met briefly, and Emily's pulse spiked, but she kept moving, her face neutral. She needed a moment alone, a chance to steady herself. She dropped her bag in her room and stepped into the bathroom, splashing cold water on her face. The mirror reflected a girl forged by betrayal, her eyes sharp with purpose. As she dried her hands, voices drifted through the thin wall, Ethan's low and urgent, and another, unmistakably Sophia's. Emily froze, her breath catching. The hotel's layout had placed them in adjacent rooms, and their conversation was straightforward, unguarded, as if they thought no one could hear. "We're set," Ethan was saying, his voice tinged with excitement. "The device is hidden in the girl's bathroom, second stall, taped under the pipe. It's small. Proctors won't notice. I'll use coughing signals to send you the answers. 1 cough for A, 2 for B, you know the drill." Sophia's reply was soft, almost coy. "Are you sure it'll work? If we get caught—" She trailed off, her tone a mix of fear and calculation, testing Ethan's resolve. "We won't," Ethan insisted. "I spent my entire savings on this thing. It's foolproof. You'll pass, Sophia, I promise." His devotion was palpable, and Emily's stomach twisted. She'd stopped this plan by warning Ethan's parents in her past life, but it had backfired, painting her as the villain. Now, she saw the depth of their scheme. A miniature communication device, a coded system, a gamble that could ruin them both. Emily pressed her ear closer, her heart racing. Sophia's voice dropped lower. "What about Emily? You said you'd get her to help. She's the best. She'd make this easier." Ethan's tone hardened. "She's dodging me. Too busy playing perfect student. Doesn't matter. We don't need her." His dismissal stung, a reminder of the friend he'd once been, but Emily pushed the pain aside. She'd made the right choice, staying clear. Their plan was reckless, and she wouldn't be their scapegoat. She stepped back, her mind racing. The bathroom hiding spot, the coughing signals, it was all brazen and desperate. Sophia had failed without Emily's help in her past life, and her rooftop leaps a cry for attention. Now, they thought they'd outsmarted everyone. Emily could expose them, but that risked entanglement, a repeat of her past mistakes. No, she'd let their plan unfold, let their flaws bring them down. Her role was to stay clean, shine in the exam, and protect her future. As she returned to her room, the hotel's fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, mirroring her restless energy. She thought of her parents, May's fiery pride, and Liang's quiet strength. They believed in her, and she wouldn't let Ethan or Sophia steal that. The exam was her stage, her chance to prove she was more than their schemes. She unpacked her books, her lucky pen glinting in the lamplight. The clock was ticking, and Emily was ready for the test and the battle she'd chosen to fight. Chen stepped into the exam hall, the air thick with the rustle of papers and the nervous hum of students. The college entrance exam had begun, its weight pressing down on every senior in the room. However, Emily carried an additional burden, the knowledge of Ethan Jiao and Sophia Lynn's cheating plan. Her heart beat steadily, not from fear, but from purpose. Sophia's failure and dramatic rooftop leap in her past life sparked Ethan's vendetta against her, costing Emily her reputation and her family's trust. She was now reborn and ready to turn the tables, not with confrontation, but with a quiet, calculated act of justice. The hall was a sea of desks, each student a solitary island under the proctor's watchful eyes. Emily's seat was near the front, her lucky pen and ID neatly arranged, and her expression was of calm focus. Across the room, Sophia sat, her delicate frame hunched, her fingers fidgeting with a pen. Emily caught the subtle tension in her posture, the nervous glance toward the door. She knew why. Last night in the hotel, Emily had overheard Ethan and Sophia's plan, a hidden communication device in the girls' bathroom, coughing signals to transmit answers. Sophia's success hinged on retrieving that device, but Emily had other plans. Emily saw her chance as students filed in, passing through metal detectors to prevent cheating. She'd slipped a coin from her pocket, its edges worn but metallic enough to trigger the scanner. Moving through the crowd, she brushed past Sophia, her hands swift and unseen, dropping the coin into Sophia's blazer pocket. The act was seamless, practiced in her mind since the hotel revelation. Sophia had accused Emily of jealousy in her past life, claiming her refusal to help was spite, fueling Ethan's lies. This coin was Emily's reply, a small, silent vengeance for her pain. The proctors called for order, and students lined up for the scan. Emily passed through easily, her belongings clean, her face a mask of innocence. When Sophia's turn came, the detector beeped once, sharp and accusing. The room stilled, eyes turning to her. Sophia's face paled, her hands fumbling as she stammered, "I didn't bring anything, just my pen." The female proctor, a stern woman with sharp eyes, raised a brow. "Empty your pockets and bag. Are you sure?" Sophia's fingers trembled as she pulled out the coin, her voice high with panic. "Oh, a coin! I must have forgotten it." The proctor nodded, directing her to place it in a storage pouch and rescan. The detector stayed silent this time, and Sophia returned to her seat, visibly shaken, but cleared. Emily watched from her desk, her lips twitching with a suppressed smirk. The coin hadn't exposed the device, but it had rattled Sophia, planting doubt in her carefully laid plans. It was enough, for now. The first exam, Chinese, began with a sharp bell. Emily dove into the questions, her pen moving with practiced ease, her mind sharp despite the adrenaline. She'd always excelled here, her answers flowing from years of study. But her focus wasn't just on the test. She glanced at Sophia, who sat rigid, her pen barely moving. The incident at the detector had thrown her off, her confidence fraying. Emily's sabotage was subtle, but its impact was clear. Sophia was distracted, her plan teetering on the edge. Emily had stopped Ethan's scheme by warning his parents in her past life, only to be vilified. She'd learned the hard way that direct action invited backlash. This time she chose precision, a nudge to let Sophia's flaws unravel her. The coin was a spark, not a fire, but it served its purpose. Emily thought of her parents, May's fiery pride, and Liang's quiet strength, waiting at home for her triumph. Ethan's lies had turned them against her in her previous life, their disappointment a wound she still carried. Today, she'd protect their trust, her future, her name. As she wrote, memories of Sophia's past accusations surfaced. "You're jealous, Emily. You love Ethan and can't stand him helping me." Those words had fueled Ethan's crusade, painting Emily as a spurned, spiteful girl. The lie had stung, not because she loved Ethan, but because it twisted her integrity into something ugly. Now, watching Sophia's nervous glances, Emily felt a quiet satisfaction. This was justice, not revenge, a way to right the scales without sinking to their level. The exam wore on, students scribbling furiously, the proctors pacing like sentinels. Emily finished early, and her paper was nearly complete, but she diligently checked her answers. Her eyes flicked to Sophia, whose hand was raised, her face pale. "Teacher, my stomach hurts. I need the restroom," Sophia said, her voice quivering but rehearsed. The female proctor, the same one from the scan, gave her a long look before nodding. "Go, I'll accompany you." Emily's pulse quickened. She knew Sophia's plan, retrieved the device from the bathroom, taped under the pipe in the second stall. But the coin incident had heightened the proctor's vigilance, and Sophia's rattled state made her sloppy. Emily kept her face neutral, her pen still moving, but inwardly she braced for the outcome. In her past life, Sophia had finished the exams before her dramatic fall. Now, Emily's subtle push might end her scheme before it began. As she handed in her paper, the hall's tension felt electric. Emily stepped outside, the sunlight harsh after the dim room, and took a deep breath. The coin had been a risk, but it had gone unnoticed, her tracks covered. Sophia's fate was in her own hands now, and Emily would let it play out. Her parents' faces, May's smile, Liang's nod, flashed in her mind. For them, for herself, she'd shine today. The exam was her stage, but the real victory was staying untouchable, one careful move at a time. Emily Chen sat at her desk in the exam hall, the scratch of pencils and the occasional cough filling the air as the Chinese exam neared its end. Sunlight streamed through the high windows, casting stark shadows across the rows of students, each lost in their battle with the test. Emily's paper was nearly complete, her answers precise, and her lucky pen was a steady extension of her focus. But beneath her calm exterior, a current of anticipation pulsed. She'd set the stage with a coin slipped into Sophia Lynn's pocket, a subtle sabotage that had rattled her rival. Now, as Sophia's cheating plan teetered on the edge, Emily waited, poised to let justice unfold without lifting a finger. Across the room, Sophia's seat was empty. Minutes earlier, she'd raised her hand, clutching her stomach and pleading for a bathroom break. "Teacher, it hurts. I need to go," she'd said, her voice a practiced quiver. The female proctor, a hawk-eyed woman named Ms. Zhang, had studied her and then nodded, escorting her out. Emily knew the truth. Sophia was after the communication device Ethan Jiao had hidden in the girl's bathroom, taped under a pipe in the second stall. The plan, coughing signals to transmit answers, was bold but fragile, and Emily's coin trick at the metal detector had already sown doubt. Now the proctor's vigilance was Sophia's undoing. In her past life, Emily stopped this scheme by warning Ethan's parents and her godparents and hoping to save him. The backlash had been brutal: Ethan's hatred, Sophia's accusations, and a campaign that branded Emily a jealous traitor. She'd lost her parents' trust, her friends, her future. Reborn, Emily had learned her lesson. Direct intervention was a trap. Instead, she'd nudged fate, letting Sophia's recklessness lead to her fall. The coin had been a spark, unnoticed by all but enough to tip the scales. As she checked her answers, Emily felt a quiet thrill, not of revenge, but of control. The exam hall buzzed with tension, students scribbling final thoughts as the clock ticked. Emily glanced at the door, expecting Sophia's return, but the minutes passed. Whispers rippled among nearby desks, quickly silenced by Ms. Zhang's glare. Emily's pulse quickened, her instincts sharp. Something was wrong. Sophia had finished the exams before her rooftop leap in her past life, a desperate act that blamed Emily for her failure. Now, the absence of her rival felt like a shift, a crack in the timeline she'd rewritten. With 10 minutes left, a sudden announcement crackled through the room's speakers, the head proctor's voice stern. "Attention, candidates. We suspect a violation of examination regulations. Conduct yourselves properly. Time remaining, 10 minutes." The words hung heavy, and a collective gasp swept the hall. Students exchanged nervous glances, their pencils faltering. Emily kept her head down, her face a mask of concentration, but her lips curled into a faint, private smirk. Sophia had been caught, or was about to be. The device, the plan, the arrogance, it was all collapsing. She thought of her parents, May's fiery pride and Liang's quiet strength, waiting at home for her triumph. In her past life, Ethan's lies had turned them against her, their disappointment a wound she still carried. Now, their faith was her shield, their love her reason to stay clear of this mess. She recalled Sophia's accusations. "You're jealous, Emily. You love Ethan," and the way they'd fueled Ethan's vendetta, painting her as a villain. Today she was untouchable, her hands clean as Sophia faced the consequences of her choices. The final bell rang, and students surged toward the exit, their voices a mix of relief and curiosity. Emily gathered her things slowly, her eyes scanning the room. Sophia's desk remained empty, her belongings untouched. Ms. Zhang stood by the door, her expression grim, whispering to another proctor. Emily's heart raced, not with fear, but with a strange exhilaration. She'd done just enough, planting the coin, staying silent, and now the dominoes were falling. The sunlight was blinding as she entered the hall, starkly contrasting the tension. Outside, students clustered in groups, gossip already spreading. Someone got caught, a boy muttered, his voice low. In the bathroom, with some device. Emily kept her distance, her face neutral, but her mind pieced it together. The proctors, alerted by the coin incident, must have checked the bathroom and found the device before Sophia could use it. Or perhaps Sophia was rattled and sloppy and had been caught retrieving it. Either way, her exam was over, and her disqualification was imminent. Emily thought of Ethan, waiting somewhere, oblivious to the collapse of his plan. In her past life, he'd blamed her for Sophia's failure, his loyalty to his goddess closing his eyes to her manipulation. Now he'd face the fallout alone. She felt a pang for the boy he'd been, her childhood friend, racing her to the river. But it faded quickly. Ethan was gone and replaced by a puppet to satisfy Sophia's ambitions. Emily's loyalty was to herself, her parents, and the future she'd fought to reclaim. As she walked toward the hotel, her exam bag slung over her shoulder, the weight of her past life seemed lighter. The coin had been a risk, but it had worked, its ripples unnoticed by all but her. She pictured May's smile, Liang's nod, the pride they'd feel when she aced this test. The exam was her stage, but the real victory was here, in the shadows, where she'd outmaneuvered her enemies without a word. Sophia's plan had unraveled, and Emily was free, her path clear for future battles. Emily Chen stepped out of the exam hall, the midday sun harsh against her skin after the sterile chill of the testing room. The first college entrance exam, Chinese, was behind her. Her answers were sharp and confident, a testament to years of study. But the real victory lay in the chaos she'd orchestrated without a trace. Sophia Lynn's cheating plan had collapsed, her hidden device discovered in the bathroom, and her exam abruptly ended. In her past life, Sophia's failure had sparked a rooftop leap, and Ethan Jiao's vendetta, costing Emily her reputation and family. Now, reborn, Emily had nudged fate with a coin, ensuring Sophia's downfall while keeping her hands clean. Yet, as she adjusted her bag, a proctor's voice called her name, sharp and urgent. "Emily Chen, come with us." Ms. Zhang, the stern female proctor, stood with two colleagues, their expressions unreadable. Students lingered nearby, their whispers a low buzz, eyes darting between Emily and the office door. Her pulse quickened, but she kept her face calm, nodding as she followed. She knew what this was about. Sophia, caught and desperate, was trying to drag her down. Sophia's lies had painted Emily as a jealous rival in her past life, fueling Ethan's campaign to destroy her. This time Emily was ready, her mind sharp with the lessons of betrayal. The office was cramped, its walls lined with faded certificates, the air thick with tension. Sophia stood in the center, her delicate frame trembling, her face drained of color. Her blazer was crumpled, her silver hairpin askew, a far cry from the poised girl Emily had watched in the courtyard. 6 teachers, including Ms. Zhang, formed a semicircle, their gazes shifting between the girls. Sophia's eyes met Emily's, and a glint of vengeful satisfaction flickered for a moment, quickly masked by a pitiful sob. "Emily, I'm sorry," she choked out. "We've been caught. I didn't mean for this to happen." Emily's stomach twisted, not from fear, but from disgust. Sophia's act was flawless, tears, trembling lips, the perfect victim. But Emily saw through it, recognizing the same manipulation that had swayed Ethan in her past life. She kept her expression puzzled, her voice steady. "Caught? I don't understand. Who are you?" The question was deliberate, a blade cloaked in innocence, forcing Sophia to justify her claim. Sophia's sob faltered, her eyes widening. "Don't pretend, Emily Chen. You were part of this. You helped me plan it." Her voice rose, desperate, but the accusation was hollow, a last-ditch effort to shift blame. The teachers exchanged glances, their skepticism palpable. Emily folded her arms, her posture relaxed but her mind racing. She'd anticipated this. In her past life, she'd been too honest and eager to explain, which made her vulnerable. Now she'd turned Sophia's lie against her. "Teachers," Emily said, her tone clear and calm, "I don't know this student. She's claiming I'm involved, but where's her proof?" She turned to Sophia, her gaze steady. "You say we planned this. How? When? I've been in the dorms, surrounded by classmates, studying every night. Name one time we spoke." Her words were measured, each one a step in a carefully laid trap. Sophia's face flushed, her hands clenching. We talked on the phone! You gave me instructions! The lie was bold but flimsy, and Emily seized it. My cell phone? She said, raising an eyebrow. What's the number you dialed? She pulled out her phone, an older model she'd replaced 2 weeks ago, and its number was canceled to cut ties with Ethan's circle. Go ahead, call it. Show the teachers. Caught off guard, Sophia recited a number, Emily's old one, supplied by Ethan in her past life. Emily dialed, putting the call on speaker. A robotic voice filled the room. The number you have dialed is no longer in service. The teacher's eyes narrowed, and Sophia's composure cracked, her lips trembling. That can't be right, she mumbled. Ethan gave me that number. Emily tilted her head, her voice cool. Ethan? So he's involved too? And you're sure that number was mine? She let the question hang, watching Sophia squirm. Anyone can know my name. I'm at the top of the grade. But that's not evidence. If you're accusing me, you'd better have more because slander has consequences. Her words were a warning, not just to Sophia but to the room, a reminder of her untarnished record. Ms. Jiang stepped forward, her voice firm. Sophia, explain yourself. Who else was involved? Sophia's eyes darted, tears drying as she realized her trap had failed. It was just me, she stammered, her voice barely audible. The teachers nodded, their focus shifting. Emily, you're free to go, Ms. Jiang said, her tone softer. Don't let this affect your performance. Good luck with the next exam. Emily nodded, her relief tempered by vigilance. As she left, she felt Sophia's gaze burning into her back, but she didn't look back. Outside, the hallway was quiet. Students had gone to lunch, the air heavy with the day's heat. She thought of her parents, May's fiery pride and Liang's steady faith, waiting for her success. In her past life, Sophia's lies had stolen their trust, branding Emily a thief. Today, she'd protected that trust, her name untarnished, her future intact. But a question lingered. Was Ethan behind this? Sophia's mention of his name suggested he'd fed her the number, perhaps hoping to entangle Emily in their mess. In her past life, his blind devotion to Sophia had driven his cruelty, and now he might be plotting from the shadows. Emily's resolve hardened. She'd face him soon, but the exam was now her focus. She adjusted her bag, her lucky pen safe in her pocket, and headed for the next test. Sophia's accusation had failed, but the war wasn't over. Emily was ready, her victory one step closer. Chen walked out of the school office, the weight of Sophia Lynn's failed accusation lifting with each step, though a new tension coiled in her chest. The college entrance exam's first session was over, her Chinese paper a triumph, but the real battle had played out in that cramped room, where she'd dismantled Sophia's attempt to frame her as a cheating accomplice. The sun blazed overhead, the courtyard nearly empty as students dispersed for lunch, their chatter a distant hum. Emily adjusted her bag, her lucky pen safe in her pocket, and headed for the hotel to prepare for the next exam. But a familiar figure blocked her path, his lanky frame casting a long shadow. Ethan Jiao. Emily! Ethan's voice was sharp, tinged with panic as he rushed toward her, his dark hair disheveled, his eyes bloodshot. Is Sophia okay? His question hit like a slap, oblivious to the chaos Sophia had just tried to unleash. In her past life, Ethan's blind devotion to his goddess fueled a vendetta that destroyed Emily's reputation, family trust, and future. Reborn, she'd avoided his schemes, slipping a coin to sabotage Sophia's cheating plan and staying clear of their fallout. Now, she saw the same Ethan face to face, loyal to a fault, blind to betrayal. Her stomach churned with disgust, but she kept her expression neutral, stepping back to widen the distance between them. Sophia? Who's that? She asked, her voice cool, feigning ignorance. The lie was deliberate, a shield to keep him at arm's length. She thought of her parents, May's fiery pride, and Liang's quiet strength, waiting at home for her success. In her past life, Ethan's lies had turned them against her, branding her a thief. Today, she'd protect that trust, no matter what he threw at her. Ethan's brow furrowed, confusion flickering across his face. You know, the girl I told you about, Sophia Lynn, she's my goddess. His voice softened, almost reverent, and Emily's skin prickled. The word goddess was a red flag, a sign of his obsession. I heard she got caught cheating and they took her away. You were in the same exam room. What happened? His desperation was palpable, his hands clenching as if he could will Sophia's safety. Emily's disgust deepened, and she had a bitter taste in her mouth. He didn't know, didn't care, that Sophia had tried to pin the cheating on her, claiming Emily was her accomplice. She'd have argued and pleaded for him to see reason in her past life, but Emily was gone, burned away by betrayal. She tilted her head, her gaze cold. Oh, you mean the girl who tried to frame me? The one who lied to the proctors, saying I helped her cheat? Her words were sharp, each a jab cutting through his delusion. Ethan's eyes widened, his mouth opening and closing like a fish. Frame you? No, that's not... Sophia wouldn't do that. His denial was instant, reflexive, and Emily saw the boy he'd become, a puppet to Sophia's whims, blind to her cunning. She's kind, Emily. She's just... scared. You must have misunderstood. Misunderstood? Emily's voice rose, her patience fraying. She stood in that office, crying, saying I planned it with her. She gave them my old phone number, one you gave her, I bet. And it didn't work because I canceled it weeks ago. The teachers saw through her, Ethan. She's a liar, and you're too blind to see it. Her words were a blade slicing through the remnants of their friendship. She thought of her past life when Ethan's lies had painted her as jealous and in love with him, a narrative Sophia had spun to ruin her. Ethan flinched, guilt flickering in his eyes, but it was fleeting, drowned by his loyalty. Sophia's not like that, he insisted, his voice cracking. She's in trouble and you're just... judging her. I thought you were my friend, Emily. Why won't you help? His plea echoed their past life, when he'd begged her to join their cheating plan, his charm masking manipulation. Back then, she'd refused out of principle. Now, she refused out of survival. Help? Emily laughed, the sound bitter. Your goddess nearly ruined my exam and future, and you're asking me to help? You gave her my number, didn't you? You let her throw me under the bus. She stepped closer, her eyes locked on his. I'm not your friend, Ethan. Not anymore. Find Sophia yourself. Her words were final, a door slamming shut on their shared past. The river races, the laughter, the boy who'd once been her ally. Ethan's face twisted, a mix of shock and anger. You've changed, Emily. You used to care. His accusation stung, but only for a moment. She remembered her past life when his care had been a facade, his apologies for her parents' performance as he framed her as a thief. She thought of May and Liang, their faith in her a beacon. Ethan's words were empty, a last grasp at control. I care about my family, my future, she said, her voice steady. It's not about a girl who lies or a boy who can't see the truth. She turned to leave, but Ethan grabbed her arm, his grip tight. Wait, Emily, please. His voice broke, desperation raw, but she shook him off, her glare icy. Please don't touch me, she snapped. You made your choice, live with it. She walked away, her heart pounding, but her resolve ironclad. The courtyard stretched before her, the hotel in sight, where she'd prepare for the next exam. Ethan's shadow lingered, but she didn't look back. In her past life, his loyalty to Sophia had been her undoing. Now, it was his trap. She thought of her parents, their pride waiting at home, and her godparents, the Jiaos, who'd suffer for Ethan's choices. Her victory today wasn't just surviving Sophia's lie, it was cutting Ethan out, reclaiming her power. As she reached the hotel, the sun burned brighter, and the air was sharp with possibility. The next exam loomed, but Emily was ready. Sophia's plan was in ruins, and Ethan's loyalty was a weakness. She'd face the tests, shine for her family, and keep her name untarnished. The war wasn't over, but this battle was hers, and she'd fight on, one step at a time. Emily Chen pedaled through the quiet streets, the late afternoon sun casting golden streaks across the pavement. The second day of the college entrance exams was behind her. Her math paper was a mosaic of precise calculations, and it was another step toward her dream university. But her mind wasn't on equations. It was on the chaos she'd sidestepped. Sophia Lynn's cheating attempt had collapsed in the first exam, her hidden device exposed, and her disqualification sealed. Emily's subtle sabotage, a coin slipped into Sophia's pocket, had tipped the scales, keeping her hands clean. Yet, as she neared home, a chill settled in her chest. The fallout was spreading and hitting closer than she'd expected. In her past life, Sophia's failure had led to a rooftop leap, sparking Ethan Jiao's vendetta that shattered Emily's world, her reputation, her parents' trust, and her future. Reborn, Emily had outmaneuvered them, dodging Ethan's pleas and Sophia's accusation that she was an accomplice. Her confrontation with Ethan yesterday, his unquestioning loyalty to his goddess laid bare, had severed their friendship for good. As she turned onto her street, she saw signs of trouble. A crowd near Ethan's house, red paint splattered across the wall, angry words scrawled in bold strokes. Cheater. Disgrace. Her breath caught. The Jiaos, her godparents, were paying the price for Ethan's choices. Emily slowed her bike, her heart heavy. The Jiaos had been her second family, their home a mirror of her own, filled with laughter and shared meals. Mrs. Jiao, soft-spoken and kind, had taught her to braid her hair. Mr. Jiao, gruff but warm, had slipped her candy during festivals. As her godparents, they'd cheered her successes, their pride rivaling her parents', Mei and Liang. But Ethan's betrayal in her past life had strained that bond, his lies painting Emily as a thief. Their suffering was a wound she couldn't ignore, yet she knew entanglement risked her carefully guarded future. She locked her bike and slipped inside her house, the familiar scent of jasmine tea grounding her. Mei was in the kitchen, chopping vegetables with a ferocity that betrayed her mood. Liang sat at the table, his newspaper untouched, his jaw tight. "Emily, you're back," Mei said, her voice sharp but strained. "Stay away from the Jiao's place. It's a mess." Her words were a command, not a suggestion, and Emily nodded, sensing the weight behind them. "What happened?" Emily asked, though she dreaded the answer. She set her bag down, her lucky pen still in her pocket, a talisman of her focus. May's knife paused, her eyes flashing with anger. Sophia's parents showed up last night, screaming about Ethan ruining their daughter. They're saying he pushed her to cheat, demanding money to keep quiet. Now the whole town's talking, vandalized their wall, calling Ethan a criminal. She shook her head, disgust clear. The Jiaos, Emily, are in the hospital. Stress, shame, you name it. Liang folded his paper, his calm voice cutting through May's fire. They're saying Sophia's pregnant too. Her parents are threatening legal action, statutory rape, they claim. Ethan missed today's exam to deal with it. His words were measured, but his eyes warned, stay clear. Emily's stomach twisted, guilt and relief warring within her. In her past life, Ethan had tried to jump off a building after failing the exam, his despair a fleeting echo of Sophia's drama. Now, his world was imploding, and she'd had a hand in it, however indirect. "I'm sorry," Emily said softly, her voice steady despite the pang for her godparents. "Is there anything I can do?" She meant it, but her resolve held firm. She couldn't dive into their mess, not when her exams and future were at stake. May snorted, her knife resuming its rhythm. "Do? You focus on those tests, girl. The Jiaos made their bed with that boy. Don't you dare get dragged down with them?" Her protectiveness was fierce, a reminder of the trust Emily had fought to preserve, unlike her past life when Ethan's lies had broken it. Liang nodded, his gaze softening. "Your mother's right. You're doing what you're supposed to, making us proud. The Jiaos, they'll sort it out. But if you visit them later, don't mention the exam, it's a sore spot." His advice was practical, a lifeline to keep her grounded. Emily nodded, gratitude warming her chest. Mei and Liang were her rock, their faith contrasting the chaos next door. She thought of her past life when their disappointment had left her hollow. Now, their love was her strength, pushing her to stay focused. As she climbed the stairs to her room, the vandalism lingered in her mind. Red paint, cruel words, a town turning on her godparents. She felt a flicker of guilt for her role, the coin that had sparked Sophia's exposure, but it faded quickly. Sophia and Ethan had built this trap, she'd only nudged it shut. In her past life, she'd tried to save Ethan, warning his parents, only to be vilified. This time, she'd chosen detachment, letting their flaws unravel them. Yet, the Jiao's pain reminded her of the cost, a shadow she couldn't fully escape. In her room, Emily opened her math notes, the exam's final day looming. She pictured May's smile, Liang's nod, the pride they'd feel when she aced it. The Jiao's crisis was a storm, but she wouldn't let it touch her. She'd finish the exams, shine for her family, and keep her name clean. Her resolve hardened as the sun dipped below the rooftops, casting her room in twilight. Ethan's world was crumbling, but hers was rising, one careful step at a time. Emily Chen stood in the hospital corridor, the sterile scent of antiseptic sharp in her nose, a bag of fruit clutched in her hand as an offering for her godparents, the Jiaos. The college entrance exams were behind her, each paper a triumph, her path to her dream university clear. But the chaos of Ethan Jiao's world, ignited by Sophia Lynn's failed cheating attempt and fueled by her subtle sabotage, had spilled over, landing his parents in hospital beds from stress. In her past life, Ethan's lies had destroyed her, turning her parents, Mei and Liang, against her and branding her a thief. Reborn, Emily had outmaneuvered him and Sophia, keeping her name clean. Yet, as she approached the Jiao's room, voices raised in anger stopped her, a storm she hadn't planned to enter. The door was ajar, and inside, a heated argument raged. Mrs. Jiao's voice, usually soft, was shrill with defiance. "Our family will never accept Sophia Lynn. 50,000 for a dowry? You're robbers." Mr. Jiao, gruff but broken, added, "We've given everything for Ethan. This is too much." Across from them stood Sophia's parents, their faces twisted with greed. 50,000 is generous," her mother snapped. "Your son seduced our daughter, got her pregnant, and made her cheat. Without her taking the fall, he'd be disqualified too." The accusation of statutory rape hung heavy, a threat to extort more than money. Emily's heart sank, guilt flickering for her godparents' pain. She'd slipped a coin into Sophia's pocket, triggering the proctor's vigilance that exposed her cheating device. But this fallout, vandalism, blackmail, hospitalization, was beyond her intent. She'd tried to save Ethan in her past life, only to be vilified. Now she'd chosen detachment, but the jousts' suffering tested her resolve. She turned to leave, the fruit bag heavy, when a voice called out, "Emily Chen!" Ethan stood unshaven at the corridor's end, eyes sunken, a shadow of the boy she'd once known. "Did you come to see my parents?" he asked, his voice raw, conflicted. Emily nodded, her guard up. "I was, but it's not a good time. I'll come back." She moved toward the stairs, but Ethan blocked her, his desperation palpable. "Wait, I need your help." His words were a plea, but his tone held an edge, the same manipulation she'd faced in her past life when he'd begged her to join Sophia's scheme. "Help?" Emily's voice was cold, her patience thin. "What now, Ethan?" He hesitated, then blurted, "Can I borrow money? Sophia's pregnant. I need it for her abortion." The request was absurd, a slap after Sophia attempted to frame her. Emily's eyes narrowed, disgust rising. "No money," she said flatly. "I'm leaving." Ethan's face twisted, resentment flaring. "We've known each other forever, and you won't even ask why. Sophia's in trouble, and you're acting like it's nothing." His accusation echoed her past life when he'd called her selfish for refusing to cheat. Emily's anger surged, memories of his lies, claiming she loved him, framing her as a thief, flooding back. She thought of May's fire, Liang's faith, the trust she'd fought to keep. "Trouble?" she snapped. "Your goddess tried to pin her cheating on me, Ethan. She lied to the proctors and said I was her accomplice. And you gave her my old number, didn't you? You let her drag me into your mess. Now you want my money? You're delusional." Her voice was a blade, cutting through his facade. Ethan's eyes widened, guilt flickering, but he doubled down. "You're why she got caught. If you'd helped, none of this would have happened. You're too selfish, Emily." The words were a match to her fury. Ethan's blame had silenced her in her past life, but not now. She spun toward the Jiao's room, Ethan trailing in panic. The argument inside paused as she entered, all eyes, Mr. and Mrs. Jiao, Sophia's parents, and Sophia herself standing calmly to the side, turning to her. "Godfather, godmother," Emily said, her voice loud, unwavering. "Ethan's out here lying again. He tried to pull me into his and Sophia's cheating plan, and when I said no, he blamed me for their failure. Now he's begging for money for her abortion, acting like I owe him." The room erupted. Mrs. Jiao gasped, tears welling, while Mr. Jiao's face darkened. Sophia's mother lunged at Ethan, snarling, "You got our daughter pregnant and want her to abort?" Ethan stammered, "No, But Emily wasn't done. "He calls me selfish, but he's the one who risked my future for Sophia. He's no friend, a coward who lets his goddess ruin everyone." Her words were a release, years of past life pain spilling out. Sophia, silent until now, stepped forward, her face serene. With a swift motion, she slapped Ethan, the sound echoing. "She said you promised to marry me and keep the baby," her voice sweet but venomous. "Now you want an abortion? Not happening." She turned to her parents, her smile calculated. Either Ethan repeats the year, gets a job, and takes care of us, or I report him. He knows I'm worth it." Her words were a chain binding Ethan, and Emily saw the truth. Sophia had never needed her. She was just a tool, discarded when useless. The Jiaos wailed, Sophia's parents shouted, and Ethan collapsed a trapped animal. Emily set the fruit down and left her heart racing, but her resolve ironed. She'd exposed Ethan, protected her name, and seen Sophia's true power. Mei and Liang's pride waited at home, her future bright. The showdown was over, but the war's end was near. Emily Chen stood outside the exam hall, the final bell echoing as sunlight poured over the campus, illuminating the jubilant faces of students freed from the college entrance exams. Her last answer, penned with her lucky pen, marked the end of a grueling journey. But for Emily, it was more, a triumph born from a second chance. In her past life, Ethan Jiao's lies and Sophia Lynn's schemes had stolen her future, branding her a thief and shattering her family's trust. Reborn, she'd outmaneuvered them, slipping a coin to sabotage Sophia's cheating, dodging their accusations, and exposing Ethan's betrayal. As she stepped into the light, her heart swelled with quiet victory. Emily's parents, Mei and Liang, proudly greeted her at home. Mei's fiery smile lit up the kitchen as she piled rice onto Emily's plate. "You did it, girl," she said, her voice thick with emotion. Liang, ever calm, nodded, his eyes shining. "We knew you would." Their faith was a balm, healing the wounds of her past life when Ethan's manipulation had turned them against her. That evening, Emily played a recording of her hospital confrontation with Ethan, where she'd exposed his attempt to drag her into his and Sophia's mess. May's face reddened, her chopsticks slamming down. "That little bastard! Are you trying to ruin yourself?" Liang, sipping tea, was quieter but firm. "We're moving, Emily. No more living next to that boy." The decision to move was a clean break, a shield against Ethan's chaos. In her past life, his lies had followed her, poisoning her college years. Her parents' resolve, May's fire and Liang's pragmatism, ensured her freedom. They spent days poring over real estate listings, settling on a modest house across town, far from the Jiao's tarnished doorstep. Emily felt a pang for her godparents, whose warmth had once been her second home. But their son's choices had built a wall she couldn't cross. She left the fruit she'd brought them at the hospital, a silent farewell to a strained bond. Weeks later, the exam results arrived, and Emily's score was perfect, a golden ticket to her dream university. She and her parents celebrated over steaming hot pot, their laughter filling the new house. College was everything she'd hoped for. Vibrant friends like Lily, who shared her love of literature, professors who challenged her mind, and even a shy boy, Wei, whose warm smile hinted at something more. Each moment was a reclaiming of the life Ethan and Sophia had stolen. She'd been a pariah in her past life, shunned for lies she didn't tell. Now, she thrived and her future was bright with possibilities. Years later, during a visit home in her senior year, Emily brought Wei to meet her parents. Over dinner, Mei, ever dramatic, shared the town's gossip about Ethan. His repeated year had been a disaster, his grades barely scraping him into a mediocre vocational college. Sophia, pregnant during his first semester, had given birth, and the Jiaos, her godparents, raised the child while Ethan struggled. Sophia rented an apartment near his campus, her presence a leash. Lunch dates, constant checks, a facade of devotion. But Ethan strayed during a brief trip home, hooking up with another girl. Sophia's response was chilling. She didn't cry, she acted. Ethan landed in the hospital, injured in a way that left him unable to have more children, though whispers of Sophia's involvement were never proven. The Jiaos, drained of their savings to secure Sophia as their daughter-in-law, accepted her fully. She played the part of a sweet, devoted model mother, erasing her cheating scandal from the town's memory. Ethan, however, crumbled. Forced to return home after graduation, he lived like a shadow, his temper flaring, his fists sometimes landing on Sophia. Yet she turned it against him, her pitiful tears winning sympathy, painting him as the monster. Swayed by her charm, the town called him lucky to have such an understanding wife, oblivious to her control. Every paycheck he earned went to her, his life a cage of regret. Emily listened, her chopsticks paused, Wei's hand warm in hers. Mei shook her head, her voice dripping with scorn. "That's what he gets, dragging our girl into his mess." Liang, calmer, added that karma's patient, Emily. You did right, staying clear. Their words were a mirror to her journey. In her past life, Ethan's lies had left her isolated and her parents ashamed. Now their pride was her anchor, their new home a fortress against his chaos. Emily reflected on her rebirth as she walked way to the train station under a starlit sky. The mysterious force, fate, karma, or something beyond, had allowed her to rewrite her story. She hadn't just survived, she'd triumphed, turning Sophia's schemes and Ethan's betrayal into their undoing. The coin, the confrontation, the distance. She'd played her part precisely, protecting her name, her family, her dreams. Ethan's regret was his own, Sophia's victory a hollow trap. Emily, free and whole, looked to the stars, her future boundless, her heart finally at peace.